Hello guys and gals, and welcome. So, I recently released a video, you may have already seen it. It's literally called The Bad. And I went over pretty much everything bad that I could think of for Diablo 4. Now, it would only be fair for me to also talk about the good. As I said during the video, I do feel like the game is a very good game, and that it has a lot going for it in terms of, well, the basics. And today I'd like to exemplify a lot of the good to counter my video on the bad. So let's pull up my good list here. And let's start with the first one, which is probably the most important. It is very fun to theorycraft characters. So far, throughout my live streams and talking with various people, including Leon, Zan, frickin' Bob, all sorts of characters in my kinship, we are looking at just tons and tons of theory crafting. The skill tree is a great success, in my opinion, and it's because it literally leaves so much open to the interpretation of the person who's putting in the points. Whether you want to build yourself a Bone Spear Necromancer, or a Sever Necromancer, or a Blight Necromancer, or a Blood Surge, or a Blood Lance, or maybe you just want to build a Bone Prison Necromancer, like, it really doesn't matter. There are so many various ways that you can combine the 58 skill points that you're given to make just the most absolutely crazy builds. I already have 2 builds on the docket, which I've been theory crafting, which is a crit poison werewolf and also a basic attack barbarian, which are both very interesting. Now, I don't know how well they're going to work out, but the fact that I'm having this much fun theory crafting characters, coming up with ideas, just looking at the mechanics and trying to see how things work, taking a look at the various legendary affixes and things to try and come up with, possible build plans. This is the kind of stuff that makes a game amazing, and Diablo 2 is very good for this. In Diablo 2, you can theory craft so many characters, and latest patches of Diablo 2 have added in a lot of additional theory crafting material, because every time they add a new rune word, or every time they add or change a new skill or something, or they adjust something here or there, new build opportunities open up, and all of a sudden now there's a whole bunch of new crazy builds floating around in Diablo 2. And theory crafting these builds is literally one of the most fun things about Diablo 2. Like, a lot of people say Diablo 2 doesn't have an end game, but honestly, it's a lie. The end game for Diablo 2 is literally coming up with crazy builds that are just absolutely nutso, that somehow seem to work. Like the Bow Enchant Sorceress, or the Zeal Sorceress, the Dream Paladins, there's hundreds of different ways that you can build characters, and yes, not all of them are going to be completely viable in, like, the hardest level content, but you can come up with some very crazy ideas. And from what I'm noticing in Diablo 4, there is a huge theory craft possibility for pretty much all characters, and it's quite insane. I honestly think that this is one of the strongest points for Diablo 4 out of everything that I can tell to you today, is that the theory crafting that it's involved in creating new characters and having fun building a character that nobody else might have at that particular moment is just absolutely amazingly fun. And it's something that has gotten me addicted to Diablo 4. The core of the game itself is well built, and although it has some bad quality of life issues, I can see great potential. So this is something that's kind of important to me, is that I've played a lot of games, and a lot of games have had a very bad, very shaky foundation. Yeah, they could potentially fix things over the lifetime of the game, but most of those games that have a very bad foundation, a very bad starting point, usually end up being garbage. And no matter what they do to try and fix it, they can't, because once you've built your game on a horrible foundation, you're going to end up with just a horrible game overall, because the foundation is falling apart and crumbling, and of course every single time you try to fix it, it just crumbles more. This game has a very good foundation. Yes, it has some issues, as I exemplified in my The Bad video, if you haven't seen that. But honestly, I think that even despite all of those bad things, the game has a very solid core, and that core is amazing. And we can see great potential, I can see great potential in this game coming in the future as they try to fix some of these quality of life issues and make the game into more of what we would like to see. I'm hoping eventually a lot of these quality of life issues are completely removed. And then if that's the case, it's pretty much going to be like polishing a diamond. Yes, there's a diamond underneath. It's a little rough, and it needs to be cut and shaped and polished and all that, but it's there. Okay? I can see the potential. The classes all seem to have different enough, they'll be different enough that you have fun choosing your class. When you're going through the various classes, like, I really feel like the classes in Diablo 4 are just very distinct, and it feels good to choose one class over another. Like, in a lot of games, I've often felt like Diablo was one of the unique ones in this, because in a lot of games, it really felt like all the characters were just kind of the same. Like, they all just kind of did the same things, and they all just kind of like, it was just like the druid, for instance, in Diablo 2, God bless the druid's heart in Diablo 2, really just felt like a rehash of several other characters. I mean, Fissure was nothing more than a copy and a reskin of Blizzard. Like there's various things, like Fury was pretty much just Zeal with a new coat of paint, and like, it just didn't really feel as amazing to play the Druid on Diablo 2, because the Druid on Diablo 2 a lot of the times just kind of felt like a knockoff character of, another class. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get at here, is that all the characters here feel distinctly different from the others. They don't feel like each other. When I'm playing a barbarian, I don't feel like I'm just a knockoff druid. Or if I'm playing a druid, I don't feel like I'm just a knockoff barbarian. When I play a rogue, I definitely don't feel like I'm any of the other characters, because it's just weird in general. The necromancer's strengths lie in his spells and his minions, and none of the other characters really have anything that even comes close to what the necromancer can do. And the sorceress is very specialized in her elemental attacks, and she's very good at them. And quite honestly, I just really think that they did a good job separating and making each one of the classes feel unique, because many other games have failed at that, and I feel like I really need to point that out and say, hey, job well done. Another thing is that the classes all seem to have very viable builds. In Diablo 2, it was often the case where certain classes were kind of shunned over the other classes. And this was due to the fact that a lot of the classes just didn't have really good end-game viable builds. Yes, they could do content, but it was very difficult for them to do end-game, like Players 8 content sometimes, because they just really didn't have a build that was like extremely viable in those situations. In Diablo 4, I really don't feel like that's the case. I feel like every class so far that I've played, and every class that I've tried to hash out, has some sort of endgame viable build, if not multiple endgame viable builds, that can work just fine. And it seems like if you put your mind to it, if you really focus and you try and make it happen, you're gonna be able to come up with a build that fits what you're trying to do. If you pick a skill and you say, I want to use this skill, and then you like look at the legendary aspects, you take a look at the tree, try and figure out how that stuff works, you're gonna find a way to make it work. And it's freaking beautiful, because not all games have that. Not all games have viable builds for every single class. PvP is extremely fun. So this one I think we could really talk about for a minute, is that currently in the game there are two PvP zones. There is the Denshar area, which is right here in Kyrgyzstan, and then there is the one that's up here in Dry Steppes, which is Al-Zuda. And I've done a little bit of PvP. I had some fun. I do have some ears in my stash right now from some various players that I was having fun murdering. And to be honest with you, I've had a blast. Both single player and in group, I've had an absolute hilariously fun time running into PvP and just nuking a couple players, or getting nuked myself. I mean, I'm hardly going to say that I'm the best PvP player in the world, but I definitely did have fun. There's a lot of cool things that you can do in PvP. The PvP zones are very well decked out to give you a reason to go there, even if maybe you don't necessarily want to PvP, because they kind of want to attract players into the PvP zone, which is absolutely a great idea. The towns for the PvP zones are pretty well stocked with NPCs, so you have a lot of stuff that you can do there. There's special mounts that you can buy, flags that you can buy, and maybe you don't care about none of that, and you just want to run in and you just want to PvP and you just want to kill stuff. Well, guess what? You can do that too. Like, what's stopping you? I mean, we've got the Cursed Scroll sales right here, which are special buffs that you can get just for PvP. We also have I believe this is one of the special vendors over here. This is the Altar of Cleansing that cleanses your blood mark. You can also purchase or gamble. You can also gamble with the frickin' shards that you get. So they give you a real and honest reason to go to PvP. Like, you can earn blood shards. You can use those blood shards to gamble for equipment, all sorts of things. You can buy cosmetics with them. And quite honestly, it just works out really well because the PvP system in general is very well done. I absolutely love it. Is it 100% balanced? I don't know. We're not there yet. Everybody's not level 100. We're not all sitting with endgame gear, and we're not all fighting each other with, like our top-of-the-line systems yet, trying to figure out which PvP characters can, like top out over the others. But as you can clearly see here, like, there's some pretty cool things that you can buy for your, PvP points, your shards, essentially, or your red PvP dust, which is the Seeds of Hatred. And, it's great. If you haven't gone out there and done a little PvP yet, get out there and do a little PvP. It's freaking amazing. What are you waiting for? Like, it's fun. It's not like Diablo 2's PvP, which is more like rock, paper, scissors. This is just like having a blast, running around, murdering stuff, getting murdered in return. There's no real penalty for dying out there. You just get back up, you dust yourself off, and you run back out, and you do it again. And if somebody is, being mean to you and, like, picking on you for, like, level 100 and you're, like, a level 70 character, then call in one of your friends and have him deal with them. Moving on to the next one, events. So there's tons of events that happen all over the world at any given time. There are Legion events. This is one of the Legion events right here. There are also world bosses that will spawn occasionally, like right here in this little basin. I think there's another one that spawns over here in this basin, and so forth and so on. And these world bosses are very fun to fight. They're currently did beef them up quite a bit, so they're not quite as easy as they were before. And you can get some pretty good rewards from them. The Legion events are very fun, fast-paced events that literally, like, if you don't do it quick enough, you don't get the rewards. So it ends up being a very big group of people all working toward the goal of trying to get all 3 chests. The HellTide events, honestly, have been one of my favorites so far, which is basically where they take a zone. Like, for instance, they might take this whole entire zone right here and just turn it red, and it's now a HellTide event. So, and there's tons of various good things you can get in the HellTide events, like legendary items, uniques, forgotten souls, the freaking shards, all the crafting materials and things that you are usually hunting for, like the coiling wards, abstruse sigils, the baleful fragments. Like, you can get your hands on a lot of this stuff. I've even seen scattered prisms drop and things like that. I got 120 of those so far. And fiend roses as well. Those are also pretty important for from PvP. Or sorry, from the HellTide events. And the HellTide events are honestly just really fun. On top of that, we also have other things. So there are the Nightmare Sigils. The Nightmare Sigils are things that you can run individually and you can test your prowess with. Now, some of the modifiers of the Nightmare Sigils, as I said in the bad video, are kind of crappy. But there are some very interesting ones like Magic Find and things that can make you move faster, attack faster. There are definitely a lot of ways that you can utilize these sigils to your advantage to get very good effects, which can help you. You can also use them to push content higher and higher and higher. So, hey, you're not on a challenge anymore. You're not being challenged anymore. Well, then grab some sigils. Go do some sigils that are way higher level than you are, and challenge yourself that way, because these sigils are 54 plus whatever the level is. So, for instance, if you were to do a level 40 sigil, that's 40 plus 54. So 5, 6, 7, 8. So 80. So level 84, right? And if you continue to rise up like this, so level 50 would be 94, and level 60 would be 104, and so forth and so on. And you could make the monsters whatever level you need to, make yourself a challenge. Honestly, I've been having a lot of fun with the end events, and I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to get bored with any of these eventually. I'm hoping, of course, that they add more world-side events, world boss events. I'm hoping that they continue to tweak the sigils, because they definitely do need some work. And the Legion events, while they are fun, we definitely could use some variation on the way that those Legion events work. They all seem kind of the same at this particular moment. The HellTides are definitely very fun, and it's fun to do those with a group because you spend a lot of time hunting down the mystery chests and trying to make sure everyone stays alive so they don't lose their cinders, which is very, very interesting. And honestly, it's very rewarding to hunt down the chests because they usually have a large number of crafting materials, legendary items, and hopefully the odd unique or two. In general, I'm definitely having a lot of fun with this, and I haven't yet got to level 100 yet. As you can see, I'm only level 86, but I definitely still participate in pretty much all the events whenever I get a chance to, unless I'm just putting my head down and grinding Nightmare Sigils, which is another thing that you could do. Next on the list is the Nightmare Sigils are interesting from a standpoint of pushing your character. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but it's interesting to kind of like use these as a gauge to see how high you can push content. You can go, as far as I understand it, 50 levels higher than level 100, so a level 150 monster. And it will be interesting to see how people outfit their character and equip themselves to deal with this really ridiculously high level content as time goes forward. I'm hoping, of course, that they do a little bit of changes with the way the Nightmare Sigils work, because some of them are just completely broken. And I talk about that during the bad video. But the good is that a lot of the Nightmare Sigils are actually pretty fun. I usually just delete the ones that have the bad modifiers on them and move on with my life. The campaign was fun, and I don't want to spoil it for everybody, but to be honest with you, it's been 2 weeks, and I'll try my best, but no guarantees. The campaign was extremely fun from beginning to end. I can't see myself doing the campaign a whole bunch of times. I would actually like to go back through the campaign on another character, probably by myself, not on stream, so that I can enjoy it more fully. I did feel like I was rushing a little bit, specifically to kind of get things done, so I could move on with the rest of the game. So it'll be fun to go back through it one more time, but at the same time, I also wouldn't want to go through it over and over again, which is it's good that they have the ability to skip the campaign, okay, which is nice. Now, I would like to see a lot of those bosses and things from the campaign maybe make their way into the regular game as well. As it is right now, a lot of the fun elements from the campaign that were, specifically in the campaign didn't really make their way into the regular game, which is kind of weird, especially when you have so many cool things in the campaign. And this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler here, but you get to find Andariel and Duriel. Why can't we find Andariel and Duriel in the regular game? Why are they only limited to the campaign? You know what I mean? But specifically talking about that, it was very fun to fight them. I liked their boss fights. They were kind of unique and interesting. So, let me fight them in the regular game too. I really liked the storyline, and I definitely felt like the story had more that could be done. But I also recognize the fact that this is a game that's probably going to have multiple expansions, I would assume, content updates, DLCs, and things like that, which we may or may not have to pay for. I really don't know. But the thing is that they left the story open for future content, and I can understand that. But I do think it's important to comment that it definitely felt like the story wasn't finished. So in the future, when we get access to that content, I'll be able to change my statement. Unique items. So unique items feel unique. They have very specific effects that I could see building entire characters around. And what I mean by that is they're just really freaking awesome. So let me go over to the stash over here and pull up some of my unique items. And I have been doing unique item videos, if you haven't seen those. Every time I find a new unique, I do a video on it and talk about the effects. But there's things like Blood Artisans Curios, the Fists of Fate, which are really interesting, and I managed to find myself a 300% pair the other day, which I'm kind of excited about. There's things like Black River, the Razor Plate, which is all built around thorns, the Greaves of the Empty Tomb, which beef up the Sever ability, the Penitent Greaves, which chill enemies around you, the Mother's Embrace, which is actually really nice for dishing out massive amounts of getting massive amounts of essence back, depending on the skills that you're using. It's actually really quite interesting, because you can get up to 40% of the resource cost refunded if you hit 5 or more enemies with this particular ring on, which is great. Death Speaker's Pendant, which is really amazing for like a Blood Surge Necro. Frostburns, which are very universal across all classes, and I've been thinking about a couple ways to best utilize this particular item. Ring of Mendeln. I mean, there's even the Bloodless Scream, which is very interesting with the ability to chill enemies with darkness skills. And quite honestly, like, the more I look at the uniques and the more I find of the uniques, the more I realize that you can literally build entire characters around them, which is something that was very unique to Diablo 2. In Diablo 2, when you found a unique item, oftentimes you were like, wow, I could totally build a character completely around this. And I could make, myself into something crazy with this item. And you get the same feeling in Diablo 4. Like, you find a unique item and you realize, like, oh, wow, this item could, like, be a game changer. I could build my character around this particular effect, or I could do something to make my character even more powerful with this. Like, this is great. And in that way, I definitely think that uniques are a solid win so far. Also, some of the uniques are incredibly hard and incredibly rare. And this means that, in general, you will often not see some of the more hard-to-find and rare uniques, like the Shaco, the Harlequin Crest Shaco, and the Grandfather Sword, which have been confirmed to be in the game, but very few people have actually found. Honestly, having chase items like this, very rare items, is actually a very good thing, in my opinion, and it's one of those things that you really, really want to have in a game. You want to have chase items. Rare items are currently king, which is a blast from the past from Diablo 2 Classic, where rare items were the best items that you could get. This is something that is really freaking important to me, because I really loved back in the day when you would constantly be looking at rare items to find the best modifiers. And Diablo 4 has definitely been 100% this in a nutshell. Every single rare item that you find that's an ancestral item at the very least, you can go over and look at the stats and try and find the most amazing modifiers possible. And let me not just say it, let me show you what I'm talking about, okay? So what do I mean by rare items are king, right? Well, when you find a rare item, like something like these pants that I found that have 18.9% damage reduction while fortified, 4.6% damage reduction flat, which could have rolled better, 6.5% dodge chance, or this shield, which is 32.3% fortify regeneration, 7.5% crit, 20.2% damage reduction while fortified, 9.9% damage reduction flat. Things like this, or even my ring, which has 11.3% physical damage, 30.8% damage to slowed enemies, 30.8% damage to vulnerable enemies, 7.5% crit chance. These are all rare items. They look like legendaries. They're not legendaries. It's a lie. Every single item I have on, with the exception of this unique helmet, imprinted, imprinted, imprinted. Actually, this one's not imprinted. I actually found this one this way. It needs to be imprinted, though, because the aspect is not perfect. It's only a 4%, and I want the 5%. Imprinted, 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 imprinted. What does this tell you? Imprinted. It tells you that the rare items that you find, the items that you find as you're going through the world, are honestly more important than the aspects. They're more important than the unique items. They're more important than just about anything. Because finding a really ridiculously good rare item is the process by which you can make very amazing characters. I've got tons of stuff saved in here for various other characters, specifically because I know that those characters are going to get you good use out of the items. Things that I can hand to other players. They're like, hey, you got a such and such weapon that I can utilize. Like, does anybody have one that has damage over time, intelligence and core skill damage? I'm like, yeah, I got an ancestral wand right here with lucky hit chance, 11% damage over time, 62 intelligence, core skill damage, but it also has critical strike with bone skills. But you could probably re-roll that. They're like, oh yeah, I could re-roll that, and I could put that into something like shadow damage, and then I would be able to do my shadow build that I'm trying to do. And this is the kind of stuff that rare items is absolutely amazing for in this game, and it's one of the things that I have absolutely loved. I know at the beginning of this video, I said that the theory crafting was the absolute best thing about this game. Well, if there's a number two, the number two for me has been rare items are king. I have absolutely loved the fact that rare items are something that you have to go through and find the best effects for. I gave one of my friends in the kinship, Bob, a ring. And this ring had like the most amazing stats on it. It was like a level 60 ring. And I gave this to him at level 60, and he had not replaced it until level 89. Because that ring was literally so good for his build that he could not find a better ring. And that was just one of the most amazing things that have happened within this game as far as the rare items are concerned. And I absolutely love going through the rare items, finding the perfect stat items, and getting them to the people who need them. And it's one of the things that you can do when you start to learn more and more about the game and what effects that people would want. Like, for instance, if you're a character that prefers close attacks, then you're going to look for things like close damage. If you're a character that prefers distant attacks, then you're going to look things for distant. If you stun things all the time, you're going to look for stun damage. And vulnerable damage is a pretty good one. So a lot of people love to get that vulnerable damage modifier. And before you're done, eventually you'll start to figure out exactly what kind of modifiers people like more than others. As of right now, I'm focusing on trying to make my character more tanky because I want to push higher level content. So I'm getting things like huge amounts of fortify reduction. I currently have 46.1% fortify reduction. Flat reduction. I currently have 14% flat reduction, not including, of course, any of my buffs and things like that. And as I go forward, building my character in specific ways, I have multiple sets of equipment even. So I currently have a very nice two-handed sword, which I utilize for high damage output, and I now have a single sword, a one-handed sword, and a very tanky shield that I'm using for tanking output. So when I'm in lower level content and I don't have to worry about dying, because you generally don't have to worry about dying when you're on level content or lower, I use the scythe. And when I'm in high level content where the monsters are literally one-shotting me at every opportunity, I'm using my sword and my shield for extreme tankiness. And in this way, I now have 3 items that are rare items that I had to find. So I had to specifically find this sword for my high damage output build, and then I had to find this shield for my tanky output. And I'm probably not going to be able to find a better shield than this. Like, only the fortify generation might be something that I'd want to re-roll, but good luck me finding something better than this at that point. A higher eye level, it definitely could be higher eye level. So if I could manage to find another version of this with like a closer to like 819, 820 eye level, I would get a little bit more better effect out of it. But good luck. I've been searching through every single rare that I've found for the past 15, 16 days, and I literally just never come across some of these ridiculous rares. And when I finally do come across them, I'm like, yes! This is gonna beef me up. And as I talked about earlier, being able to share rares with my friends has made the game feel more engaging on the whole. I often save items for other people. It's fun to see them get excited when I show them an item that's absolutely perfect for their build. I talked about this a little bit with the previous entry, but I feel like I do need to expand on this. Diablo 3 really felt like a single-player game. Everything was locked. Nothing was tradable. Good luck. Maybe if the person was with you and you were playing non-ladder, you could maybe give them the item if it dropped at the same time that, they were standing there. But if they weren't standing there with you, then no. And if you were playing ladder, then no. And it made the game feel very much like a single-player adventure, because Diablo 3 was very much so that. It really, really didn't feel good. But this, being able to share these rare items with my friends, has made the game feel a lot more engaging and a lot more fun. If I couldn't share these rare items with my buddies, I can tell you for a fact the game would just be not something I would want to play. If I can't get excited at finding this godlike golden unique right? And sharing it with my friends and going, hey, look at this. You know, like, then what's the point? If I can't find an item, like, and I understand that you can't share uniques, but if I can't find an item, like a really good rare item, and be like, oh man, Bob, this would be absolutely perfect for your build. I can't believe it. This is like the absolute perfect wand for you, or the absolute perfect staff for you, and show it to him, and him be like, oh my god, that is the absolute perfect staff. And then I can actually hand it to him. If I couldn't do that, the game just wouldn't feel as good. And so I'm putting this on the good, because obviously this is something that I very much so enjoy. No sets. Yes, this is a good thing. Yes, it really is. The sets in Diablo 3 literally were so stupid that they literally would play the game for you. They told you what skills to use. They told you what order to press the buttons in. They literally made the game into a brain-dead button mashing adventure where literally all you had to do was what the game told you to do and nothing more, nothing less. I absolutely love the fact that sets are not in this game, and for those of you who think sets should be in this game, I want you to actually go play Diablo 3 again and put on one of those sets and see how it literally forces you to play your character exactly the way it wants you to play. And if you don't play the character exactly the way that set wants you to play, well, guess what? You're garbage. We don't want that in Diablo 4. We do not. In Diablo 2, sets were also a thing, and sets were very much so mediocre. And although some pieces were best in slot for some characters, none of the sets in Diablo 2, for the most part, were things that you would wear as an endgame best in slot character. Not the entire thing. Individual pieces here and there, 2 or 3 pieces, maybe even 4 pieces as a best in slot, but it was never the entire set. Okay? They don't know how to do sets properly. In Diablo 2, the sets were underwhelming, and in Diablo 3, they dominated the entire game, and we don't want sets that dominate the entire game. If they can add sets like Diablo 2, then okay, but the problem with the Diablo 2 sets is they generally ended up getting ignored for the most part, except for very specific use case scenarios. So they've got to find, if they do want to add sets eventually, they've got to find some way to do it that doesn't involve making them into Diablo 3 sets. And this is not something that I specifically am the only one that holds the opinion of. The developers themselves said they felt that the sets in Diablo 3 ruined the player's agency and took away the personal, choices of the character. That literally putting those sets into the game was a mistake because it took away the character's, the player's ability to choose how they wanted to play. Group play has been very fun and very rewarding to coordinate attacks. So one of the things that you'll notice about my Necromancer is I'm a Bone Spear Necromancer. I do use summons, but I am a Bone Spear Necromancer. And it's honestly very fun to use Bone Spear. Bone Spear is a very straight line attack. It pierces, does lots of damage, comes back through, pierces again, but it requires all the monsters to be, in a nice, neat little pile. Well, one of the players that I've been playing with on a regular basis, Bob, will literally group up the monsters for me. And it's absolutely amazingly good group play, because he groups them all up, I fire a Bone Spear through, and absolutely demolish all the monsters, because of course the piercing attacks work so well if you can group the monsters up. The Necromancer has been playing very much so like a freaking Javazon from Diablo 2. If you ever played the Javazon has one piercing attack, which goes in a straight line. When it hits something, it shoots out multiple additional projectiles. Look at that. It hits out multiple additional projectiles. And if you manage to pierce multiple times and hit multiple monsters, you can dish out more and more damage, depending on how many monsters you pierce and how many monsters are sitting in the row, right? And on top of that, you can put out more projectiles if you happen to fulfill specific requirements. Well, so can I. If I crit, I can put out even more projectiles. So instead of 3, it'll come back as 5, which is amazing. And in this way, the character has been very good like this. Now, one of the really cool things about Diablo 2 is you could often have interesting group play like this as well. Somebody could go ahead and corral the cows into a nice, neat group. The Javazon would come along and absolutely annihilate them. Well, that's been my experience with Diablo 4 as well. It seems like group play is very rewarding because a lot of the stuff within the characters and how they work does transfer across the things. Like, for instance, one of the things that a lot of sorceresses are doing right now is the Ice Blades, which focuses on shooting off additional Ice Blades every time a monster gets frozen. Well, if you have another character in the group that's also freezing targets, it also allows the sorceress to shoot off more ice blades. So in this way, you can definitely coordinate your attacks. You can set up your cooldowns and strike the target all at the same time and dish out massive amounts of damage by just having fun playing together. In Diablo 3, I never felt this way. In Diablo 3, I always felt like it was just me doing my thing and them doing their thing, and it never mattered like what I was doing or what they were doing because we were only all ever just playing by ourselves anyway. In Diablo 2, coordinating your attacks is actually pretty rewarding as well. Having the paladin run conviction and having the Javazon throwing the javelins and having, like somebody tank and things like that, or the necromancer with his army tanking, all of it comes in very nicely in Diablo 2, and group play is very rewarding. So I definitely feel like this is a very good thing in Diablo 4, is that group play has been extremely fun so far. This next one is a kind of a little bit of a convoluted one and could change in the future. So do take this with a grain of salt. And it has to do with the fact that in Diablo 2, I always felt like I was learning new things. Diablo 2 hid a lot of secrets under her skirt for decades. And things just didn't ever really quite seem apparent. And no matter how much I learned, no matter how much I delved, no matter how much I studied, there was always something new to learn. And I'm starting to get the feeling from Diablo 4 that it's very much the same way, and that there's always something new to learn underneath the surface. Some new build that I could possibly come up with, some complication of the way that the mechanics work between two abilities, and I have been having an absolute blast learning these secrets and constantly learning new things. It's one of the things that I absolutely love, is to constantly learn new things. As a mentor, the Ginger Gaming mentor, one of the things that a mentor can never stop doing is learning. You can't stop learning ever. You always have to be in a thirst for knowledge. And I am constantly in a thirst for knowledge for Diablo 2 as well as Diablo 4. Diablo 3, on the other hand, never felt like that. At a certain point, I felt like I had learned everything there was to learn about Diablo 3, and Diablo 3 just was boring. There were so many aspects of Diablo 3 that were just so boring. And to this day, I can honestly not believe when people even utter the statement that Diablo 4 is worse than Diablo 3, because having played Diablo 3 for many thousands of hours, I can tell you for a fact that Diablo 4 is so far better than Diablo 3 by miles, by leagues and bounds better than Diablo 3, that it's laughable that anyone would even ever state that. In fact, at this point, I can't even see a reason why Diablo 3 still exists, because Diablo 3 is so bad, and Diablo 4 is so much better than Diablo 3, that they should probably just retire the Diablo 3 servers entirely and move on. Diablo 2, on the other hand, still competes with Diablo 4, and I absolutely love Diablo 2. You're never going to get me not to love Diablo 2, and for those of you who for some reason think that just because I'm playing Diablo 4 that I hate Diablo 2 now or something, you guys are weird. I now have a place in my heart for both of these games. To be honest with you, I can see Diablo 4's potential, and maybe 5 years from now in the future, when they fixed a lot of the bugs, especially the stuff that I went over in the bad video, Diablo 4 could be a shining gem in the life of Diablo games. I mean, Diablo 3 is a turd. They polished it a little bit at some point, and so it's a shiny turd, but it's still a turd. And Diablo 2 is honestly still the king, in my opinion. But could Diablo 4 eventually overtake Diablo 2? I see a strong foundation. I see a very good opportunity. And as long as they don't blow it, I think Diablo 4 could eventually overtake Diablo 2. Is it overtaking it right now? No, it's not. There are still a lot of issues, a lot of things that Diablo 2 still does better. And I will always toot the horn of Diablo 2 wherever Diablo 2's horn needs tooting. But in the future, should they actually, pay attention to feedback, change things as necessary, balance things properly, and not screw everything up, I can see Diablo 4 going pretty far. Next is the side quests and side dungeons are very interesting. I'm not sure if you guys actually paid attention or if you just skipped everything, but there are so many very fun and interesting side quests in the Diablo 4 world. One such side quest was literally a side quest involving the fate of the paladins. It had to do with going into the Zakarum Temple, reading journal entries that had to do with the paladins of the Paladin Order, literally the one from Diablo 2 that everyone knows and loves, and talks about how Mephisto corrupted the Order, goes through the lore of things. I mean, it is absolutely enthrallingly interesting, and I would love to go back through that quest again. In fact, I'm probably going to have to find that on my live stream and cut it out so that you guys can experience the Paladin quest yourself, if, just in case you skipped it or something. But literally at a certain point, there's literally a Paladin on the ground who is dead, and I don't know exactly when this happened, but he literally looks like the Paladin from Diablo 2. And they talk about the faith and how things changed and where, things went. And it could even be foreshadowing, who knows, to eventually the Paladin coming back to the Diablo franchise, which I think a lot of people are very interested in. Overall, my impressions of this game are very high. I like it. I have fun with it. I've become addicted to theory crafting characters. I've become addicted to searching for rare items. I have fun playing with my friends and power leveling them and going through dungeons and challenging content that we probably shouldn't be doing. And I'm kind of excited to get to level 100 and eventually challenge the capstone Uber fight, which if you guys haven't actually heard about this before, let me enlighten you. So at level 100, when you finally reach level 100, there is a fight that you can go do where you basically it's like the ultimate capstone for the game. So this is the Uber fight, so that to test your character at his utmost. And Lilith is actually level 100 in this fight. So you generally kind of want to get to level 100 before you start to fight her. Otherwise, she's going to kick your butt, and she's really good at it. So, yeah. This is another feature of PvP if you guys have never seen it. So if somebody kills too many people, they get highlighted on the map. So this particular player has been highlighted on the map as a major threat, essentially. Like he's killed too many people, or he has too many seeds, or whatever the hell's going on. I can't remember the exact specifics of it. But he is being highlighted for everyone to see because of his accomplishments within the PvP zone. I could try and go kill him, but he's probably level 100. That would be my bet. Unfortunately, the level penalty difference between me and a level 100 character is pretty massive. But to get into PvP, you got to blood mark yourself first. So I would have to mark myself for blood. Then I could go out here and I could try and challenge whoever this is that's got the freaking red skull of doom on the map. All in all, I am having a blast with this game. I'm having tons of fun. So much so that I'm pretty sure my girlfriend hates me now, but, that's neither here nor there. It would be funny if it wasn't true. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when I'm just yakking for 42 minutes on the good features of Diablo 4. And let me know what you guys think of Diablo 4. I'm interested. I have 2 videos up right now. I've got the bad and the good. Which side do you fall on? Is Diablo 4 mainly good? Or is Diablo 4 mainly bad for you? Let me know.